Hi guys, welcome back to another Hugh video. In this video, I'm going to be trying to resurrect 3 iPods, all 5th generation models dating from around 2005. The first one is a 30GB slim model with a broken dock trim, hard to press center button, and an expanded battery which doesn't hold any charge. So while it works plugged in, it's hard to navigate and lacks any form of portability. The second is an 80GB thick model which is in working condition other than the dead pixels on the display. This was an issue seen on a lot of these iPods and even some of the early iPhones. Lastly is another 30GB model which won't charge or sync with USB. It also had a cracked screen when I received it. I got these devices all from a massive tech lot I received some time ago. I've already fixed up some of the devices and have even made a few custom ones such as my transparent iPod. Before we get started, I'd like to give a shout out to the Wireless Alliance for helping make this video possible. I will drop a link to their website, and if you're in the US, consider checking out their trade-in tool to get some cash for your old devices. Coming back to the iPods, I'm going to start with the 80GB model with the damaged display. I'll need to open it, which is actually quite a difficult task. I can use a series of different picks and spudges to be able to separate the front panel from the back housing. I also got my fingernails involved to help with the separation. You can see here one of the metal tabs has actually pulled up with the back housing, but that's not a big deal because I can press that down into place before sealing it back together. Once I've got the back panel loose, I'll carefully move it to one side and disconnect the battery so we can fully open up the iPod. You'll see that it has a physical mechanical hard drive which we'll need to disconnect and remove. I'll also remove the back panel flex cable, which is responsible for the headphone jack and hold switch. Disconnecting the LCD cable, I can remove the 6 screws on the sides of the iPod and take off the front panel. From here, I can simply push out the old screen and line up the new one. Pressing it down into place, I can remove the protective film and reinstall the front panel. Next up, I can put back in those 6 screws we just removed and connect up the LCD cable. This simply pushes into the connector itself and is secured down with a lever at the back. It's time to reconnect the back panel and connect its flex cable back to the motherboard of the iPod. Once that is secured into place, I can reconnect the 80GB hard drive back inside. I won't be upgrading this to an SSD or even an SD card, as this hard drive works absolutely fine. With our hard drive reinstalled, we can test out the iPod. I'm going to flip over the back panel and reconnect up the battery. I won't be replacing this either, as it works perfectly fine, as I used to use this iPod before making my custom transparent one. Pressing and holding the menu button, you'll see the screen lights up and no more dead pixels. Awesome. I can seal up the iPod and press the 2 halves back together. Coming across to our slim, white 30GB iPod, I can do a similar opening process as the first one, and once we've got the back panel separated, we can take out the hard drive. Just like the other iPod, this hard drive is still working, so we won't be replacing it. Disconnecting the back panel, I'm going to remove the 6 screws holding in the faceplate of the iPod. With those screws removed, I'll take a jimmy tool just to help separate that front panel, as it has got some light adhesive holding it in place. Once that's removed, I can take a look at the center button. You can see it's sort of stuck in place and I had to nudge it out with a spudger. Getting a closer look at the buttons, you can see the black spacer piece is not aligned properly on the center button like the others are. This is what's causing it not to work properly. To fix this, I'll be using this adhesive foam-like material, and a hole punch has been used to create the new replacement spacer for the button. This was supplied from the eBay seller I purchased the LCD and batteries for these iPods. He was awesome enough to suggest this as a fix for the iPod, so as a thanks, I will drop a link to his eBay store in the description. Putting our click wheel back into place, I tested out that center button and sure enough, it's clicking like it should. So cleaning off the display, I can get that front bezel reinstalled. Pressing it down into place, I can reinstall the 6 screws, securing it in. Turning our attention to the back housing, I can get a closer look at this expanded battery. You can see there's quite a bit of air in here, so I'm going to take this out and replace it with a new one. Using a spudger, I can lift it up, but be careful of the cable that runs underneath it, not to rip it up when you're removing that battery. You can see that it's expanded quite a bit and is definitely needing a replacement. Speaking of our new battery, here it is. Pulling it out, I'm going to actually remove the label just a bit to see whether this is a new battery or not. You can see it isn't just rebranded, and it does look significantly different than the original one, which is good to see, as I don't want a rebranded used battery. So awesome to see there. Down at the bottom of the iPod, I'm going to remove the old dock trim piece and install a new one. While this doesn't improve the functionality of the iPod, it definitely is a cosmetic improvement. I can reconnect the flex cable going between the two halves, reinstall that hard drive, and seat it down correctly. Flipping the back panel over, I can line up the new battery and connect it into place. Testing out the iPod, I got a connect to iTunes message, which wasn't right. So I believe that I may have just not seated the hard drive in correctly, or the iPod itself just freaked out a little bit. So I reconnected the hard drive, and this time, everything works. It lights up, and that center button is working as it should. We now also have a battery that works off of the charger. So I can clip it back into place and move on to the last iPod. This iPod is needing a bit more work. When I received it, it wouldn't turn on or charge. However, when a charged battery was installed, it would power on. The screen was cracked. Taking a deeper dive, I noticed that it didn't charge or sync with iTunes over USB. However, Apple's older FireWire to 30-pin charger works, as well as playing music through my iPod Hi-Fi system. So for this iPod, I'm going to be attempting a board level repair and trying to change the 30-pin dock connector. With the iPod open, I took a closer look at the connector itself. None of the pins look damaged, and even on the board itself, no solder joints have any damage. Now, I don't have a microscope to be able to diagnose this fully, so my best bet is just to replace the connector and see if that works. So, taking out the screen, I'm going to remove the motherboard, which is held in place with adhesive. First though, I'll need to remove a couple of grounding strips before I can press it out of place. I ordered a new dock connector online, as well as a bunch of equipment to do this, and I've actually never done a repair like this, so here we go. With the logic board on a board holder, I began by applying new solder to the support pins of the connector. Adding new solder should help melt the old stuff. I didn't have any traditional solder, so I used solder paste and applied it using an old pair of tweezers. I then attempted to remove as much of the old solder as I could using some desoldering wick. Flipping the board over, I applied some heat-resistant tape to the plastic hard drive connector, as we didn't want it to melt away. Then I could apply some flux, and coming back with the hot air rework station, try and remove the 30-pin dock. I noticed the board holder that I'm using couldn't really get a good grip of the board for the iPod, so this was a little bit finicky. I wasn't able to get the connector removed, so I added some solder paste, which should help melt the old solder joints on the top half of this board. This helped a lot, and I could see the connector was coming free. Although, as I wasn't able to remove all of the solder from the support posts either side of that connector, I still had a little bit of difficulty lifting it out of place. This is my first board level repair with my new equipment, and really in general, so you're going to have to bear with me. With a little bit of persistence, I was able to get the connector removed, and taking a close-up macro shot, you can see I didn't pull any pads, and everything else around it is still looking intact. So I attempted again with the desoldering wick to remove as much of the solder as I could from these support posts. Even with the smaller piece, I just couldn't get it removed. I believe I either didn't have my soldering iron hot enough, or just required a bigger tip to do this. Regardless, it'll still work, but it'll just be a little bit more difficult to get this connector reinstalled. I'm going to apply some flux and some solder paste to the support posts so we can get this new connector installed. As I don't have a microscope, this can be a little bit difficult to get everything lined up right, as well as trying to film it at the same time. But with the connector installed through the support posts, it's time to get the actual pins that matter connected up to the logic board. So I applied some more flux and some more solder paste to the new pins on the back of that connector. Using the hot air rework station, I could melt the solder joints and make the connection. Unfortunately, I made a few too many connections as I bridged a few of the pins. So using some desoldering wick and a soldering iron, I could fix up my small mistake. Once I was happy, I could use some alcohol and clean off any residual flux, solder, and any other gunk. It's now time to test out my repair and see if we actually fix this iPod and it now syncs and charges with USB. So I reinstalled the motherboard, a screen, and every bare component needed to just get this iPod tested. We're not going to completely reassemble it, just to save some time. Flipping it over and pressing and holding the menu button, we see an Apple logo, and thankfully I didn't break the iPod. So it's now time to see if it charges. This is an old school Firewire to 30-pin cable. Plugging it in, we can see the iPod charges. No change there. What we need to test is whether it charges with USB. So using a USB to 30-pin cable, I can plug it into the iPod and see nothing. It didn't change. It still doesn't charge or sync with USB. So it appears the dock connector wasn't the reason for this issue. So it seems to be a deeper board level issue. For now, it remains not fully working. Coming across to the 5th generation we assembled earlier, I'm going to give it a good clean. You can see just how filthy this thing is, especially around the click wheel. So using a cotton swab and some alcohol and a microfiber cloth, we can get this iPod looking quite nice. I also did try using some metal polish for the display, although even after about 7 minutes of polishing, there was no change to the scratches left in the screen. With that iPod clean, I'll clean the other 2 iPods, which are in a much cleaner state anyway, but a bit of alcohol and a microfiber cloth to make them look a bit better doesn't hurt. After cleaning up the backs, we're done. So this is it. We achieved 2 out of 3 fully working iPod 5th generations, which isn't bad considering the various issues they had. The 2 fully working devices are not in an immaculate state, having various scratches, which on these stainless steel iPods is unavoidable. The 3rd iPod will only connect via Firewire, so while technically usable, you'll need a computer with a Firewire 400 port. While a lot of people now stream their music online, I'm still using my iPod every day of the week. They are just as great as when they were first released. This little device will keep you entertained and disconnected from your smartphone, which I believe most people, especially my age, could do with. And on that note, this has been a Hugh Jeffries video. If you like what you saw, hit that subscribe button and consider checking out the restoration playlist for more videos just like this one. And if you're looking for some helpful tips or what tools I use to repair devices, be sure to check out my website, link for which is down in the description. That's all for this video, and I'll catch you guys next time.